name is Dalia Samir. I am the co-founder of Hydrogen Egypt and the Business Development Director.
And I'm Khaled Nageib, the CEO and founder of Hydrogen Egypt.
Egypt has been identified as a potential leader in the green hydrogen export market, particularly to Europe. What are Egypt's strategic objectives and initiatives regarding hydrogen exports?
So we, during COP27, had more than 30 different consortium developers approach Egypt to launch projects for export of green hydrogen and green ammonia. So that's the main driver. So Egypt, based on Repower EU, the 10 million tons from outside of Europe, Egypt's targeting 8% of global demand, which represents something like, I think, 5 or 6 million tons of green hydrogen, which is like, say, 30 million tons of green ammonia, which is a very important number. So from there, that demand drives a cascade of in Egypt. So they've allocated land for the solar wind. Grid has already is very good and can accept significant amounts of power from renewable on it. We have industrial zones, ports. We have proximity to Europe. We already produce 6 million tons of ammonia, so we have the infrastructure for exporting ammonia, the export terminals. So Egypt has all these characteristics that lend itself to being a global player in green hydrogen, green ammonia, with a particular focus on export to Europe. So those are to answer your question, that drives all the objectives and policies. So recently they just established the National Council on Hydrogen, which it's like a one window with all the authorities. They've had 3 different series of incentives to get the industry going for developers.
How can Egypt's hydrogen strategy help the country to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030?
As a Hydrogen Egypt, we advocate for the SDGs 2030. We are advocating for the hydrogen village for women. We are encouraging the women to use the hydrogen in their home for heating, for cooking, for everything from that stuff. Also, we can tell that women is the one who has been affected from the climate change. And also, we are thinking about changing all engine to be made by hydrogen, like for fishing village, to use all the cooling machines or fridges by hydrogen, have their storage to save, to no more use the electricity, and this is for the health and of our planet, for more decarbonization and for the energy transition and for our new generation and new kids to save the world.
The recent Deloitte study highlights the significant role that North Africa, including Egypt, is poised to play in exporting green hydrogen to Europe. What are some key milestones and partnerships Hydrogen Egypt has achieved in this regard?
We can say that there's really this big developments with green hydrogen, green ammonia in North Africa, and I think each country sort of is leveraging its unique capabilities or unique features. So Morocco is very close to Spain and France, so they're well positioned with the pipelines. As I mentioned earlier, Egypt is well positioned with its existing ammonia infrastructure and petrochemical capabilities. So if you want to look at it as a sort of a regional comparative overview, I think there's room for everybody because the quantities required of green hydrogen, green ammonia are enormous. We're here at this conference, the Forum Hydrogen Business for Climate, and we heard this in every panel talking about that invariably Europe will need to import significant amounts of green hydrogen and ammonia from mainly North Africa. Of course, other countries in Africa and Asia, let's say. So the role, and I can speak then more about Egypt in that regard. all the pieces are there: the renewable energy, the industrial zones, the ports, the grid, the infrastructure. And let's not forget something else too, which is unique about Egypt in comparison to some of the other regional players, which is we have a very large local potential demand for hydrogen. So, case in point, we have nearly 10 large refineries. So we already use nearly 2 million tons of gray hydrogen. So that's it needs to be replaced with green or low carbon hydrogen. Our steel plants, most of them are DRI plants. So they are very suitable for hydrogen as a feedstock and as a fuel. And also the larger sort of petrochemical industry, the polyethylene, polyurethane. We have a very, very large, well-developed petrochemical industry. Egypt's also very, well, it's a challenge and unique. We live and work and eat and do everything on 5% of our land mass area. So that's the delta, which is not very big. You can say it's 200 kilometers by 200 kilometers. And then a thin strip of the Nile. So that's a huge market, densely located all together, with all the layers that we described that are either for export or for local demand. Last but not least, I'll speak about a couple of different areas as well about that. One is the transport and mobility. So that'll happen, will come later, because we have the fuel which is subsidized, but they are lifting the subsidies and the price of hydrogen is going down. But already Egypt has significant experience with the CNG, compressed natural gas vehicles, and we do something also unique. We mix the CNG and the fuel, diesel and fuel, and that's going to happen with hydrogen as well. That brings us to something equally important too, which Dalia referred to, which is the small-scale production applications. So that means producing hydrogen, let's say almost in a home setting or village setting, or a small industry, a small company setting. So that's where you produce hydrogen, again, to use cooking, welding, running your tuk-tuk, all kinds of little applications, running your water pump in the village, So that opens up a whole, wide range of applications, which we can say also, you hear the word frequently, it's like energy sovereignty, That's again, shifting the momentum from fossil fuel and decarbonizing and going towards hydrogen. And as a Hydrogen Egypt, also, as Dalia alluded to, we do a lot of awareness and work with remote villages, like fishing villages in the Red Sea. And there we do these demos. We're already seeing in a lot of villages and remote areas and just villages in general, you're seeing the solar panels, So we are also advocating, and we're starting to see the hydrogen production as well.
What are some of the actions undertaken by Hydrogen Egypt to gain public support for hydrogen production?
For public support for hydrogen, we, as an association, Hydrogen Egypt, we have a very important role together with Dalia Samir. So we just organized this Egyptian Hydrogen Summit. So why don't you say something about that?
Yeah, we have invited all foreigners, European and even African countries to come to see and explore the opportunities in Egypt. We have many opportunities here in Egypt because we have the sun, the land, the wind. So we have all the criteria here existing.
And I think also let's mention what we did with the Arab Academy for Maritime Science. It was your idea.
Yeah. We have invited also Arab Academy to choose their case. They have a small scale production application to show, and it was a very good idea and very interesting to start by this low scale application.
It was actually this Arab Academy for Maritime Science. It's a very important institution in Egypt. It was Dalia's idea to invite them. They had actually a fuel cell and a hydrogen car, and they demonstrated this at the very large forum. So we gave a voice to sort of to generate public support. It really generated a huge amount of interest. We actually did at the end of the conference when people said, "Why didn't you do it in the beginning of the conference?"
And we do invite some students from universities. because we are encourage students a lot. Many students from many universities has come in our event, and we are taking care about the Hydrogen Valley. We are part of the Hydrogen Valley. It's an EU project we are member of. And we are also initiating something named the Valley of Ra. Ra is the god of sun. So we to make a complete supply chain in Egypt, we can start with a small scale, like from Cairo to Alexandria, making all the complete supply chain for hydrogen and green hydrogen ammonia. Also, we are caring about the formation, about the vocational training for the new employees for the hydrogen.
Just to close it out, it's our last Egyptian Hydrogen Summit. We of course we have this Hydrogen Valley project we call Valley of Ra, the god of sun. But we also invited somebody from the Ministry of Antiquities to come in and speak about how ancient Egyptians approached to the environment and to and to climate change. So climate change for them was very important, and because they had floods and they had big catastrophic environmental factors. So environment, water, sun, all this played a very big role. So they clearly understood. Well, they didn't know exactly hydrogen, but they understood the sort of chemical elements and how to manipulate that to preserve the mummies, and to also whenever they made anything, as this Egyptologist told us.
Yeah, the wood in the charts.
Yeah, so they everything they made was to last. So their idea was not to consume. It was not the sort of consumerism, if you will, society like ours. Even if they made bread, so the bread would say they would bury it with the pharaoh or whatever, but it was actually the same bread they made for themselves, which would last for a very long time. And they just did this simply by manipulating. They understood the amount of minerals to work with. So even when this Egyptologist, this amazing lady, showed up, we had invited them months ago, and they showed up at the very last minute at the conference. And I was sitting there, and this lady, she almost looked like an ancient Egyptian. She came and she said, "Look, I'm here." And I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "You sent us a letter months ago." And so I showed up to give my speech. And I said, "Really? What are you doing with hydrogen?" And she said, "I just came back from the lab. We're working with the mummies, and we use hydrogen gas to preserve the mummies." I said, "That's great. Now you can get up and say something about the ancient Egyptians and the environment." So we tried to make a historical tie, and we are using this for public support and public awareness to show people that this is something that historically was done in